Hello, are there any stages before enlightenment? I've had various experiences, but I can't seem to solidify the ultimate experience just yet. Well, let's give it a try. Let's assume that you and I are on certain wavelengths, and these waves are our very life. So we experience different events, the sequence of events, correct? Right. We can be on a certain emotional wavelength, perhaps one moment on one and the next on a completely different one. The waves can be different. They have like various frequencies, well, just like the waves in the ocean. And we understand perfectly well that these are just waves. On one shore of the ocean, they are 5 meters high. On another, 3, and on another, it's completely calm. But we are talking about what is not on the waves, but about what is in the depths of this ocean. And in the depths of the ocean, let's consider our initial stage, which we'll refer to as awakening, correct? We'll discuss it briefly now. Awakening. What is awakening? It is that moment when we are already in complete peace, right? That is, we are beyond these waves. They bother us less and less because they are on the surface. What are these waves? These waves, they represent the emotional charge that somehow stirs or disturbs us. Any panic attacks, anxieties, or worries you might have, all of that goes away when you awaken, right? Because your whole attitude toward them changes. It simply occurs within that space, allowing you to perceive the world sensually. That's all. Your restless mind no longer disturbs you, you understand? It doesn't govern you, and it doesn't disappear either. It merely becomes another tool, like your hands, your feet, or your head. It starts to help you on the path to your self-realization. So that's probably the first goal you should set for yourself. I mean, of course, someone might say, well, to reach enlightenment, I'd have to sit in the Himalayas for 20 years. That's too long. I won't even dream of it. I don't have time for that right now, right? It's easy to make excuses. Yeah. However, awakening marks that crucial phase where the path ahead becomes entirely clear. It's the moment you finally realize, with a deep understanding, that for countless decades you've been caught in a dreamlike slumber, completely unaware or unable to perceive the direction you were meant to go. And that's precisely why I truly wish for everyone to desire awakening and to achieve it much sooner. To achieve this, you really need to invest time, strategize, align your life, and make it your top priority to awaken, come what may. Yes. Because then it becomes at least understandable as living constantly in the mind when this very mental process, this thinking, completely overtakes us and we are entirely trapped in this cycle of our mind samsara. Well, you can't live like that, especially after awakening, it's very clear. And of course, these are different inner sensations, joy, peace, and a different degree of awareness. The world is no longer the same. These are very serious, deep changes. That's about awakening. It's all relative. So, this is also a specific concept for perception, for understanding. It's so convenient to apply to it. It's a conditional concept, but it resonates more with us, which is why we express it in this manner. Don't you agree? The subsequent stage is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness. Or a pure level of consciousness, right? There's a certain gradation, actually. There are such terms in the world, such as Jacob's ladder, for instance, described in Orthodoxy or in the Torah, in Kabbalah, right? And for instance, in Islam, there's the ladder to heaven, indicating a certain gradation. This concept of levels also appears in other cultures, like in Buddhism, referring to the various levels of consciousness. And it's actually, well, quite multi-staged with a lot of different transformations and changes involved. And even some scientists, including our Russian counterparts, have actually conducted experiments, haven't they? And in Tibetan monasteries, they used instruments to record the immersion into these profound levels of consciousness. So this is no longer just some kind of mysticism, but a reality. In a state of pure consciousness, an individual experiences the world entirely free from their ego personality. That is, there is only the living present moment. Here you can see the birth of thoughts, right? This means that every single thought possesses a distinct energetic signature, already taking shape as a fully formed image that inherently contains within it that which will eventually manifest. Do you understand? Because, well, it's no secret. We understand that thoughts materialize. So you can see the birth of thoughts. It's a different, more pure spectrum of perception. And of course, this speaks to inner honesty, because with a pure consciousness, you can no longer be dishonest or insincere with this world or with yourself. So this is already, well, quite deep inner work, an interaction with space, with the frequency of space. Space is already you. There is no longer any separation here. If we go further, then, well, conditionally speaking, there is a certain cosmic consciousness. And if we speak of some yogic teachings that we can now encounter somewhere on the internet or, well, yeah, then in general, probably no one talks about anything beyond cosmic consciousness. That is, the only thing that can somehow be described in words about integrating into cosmic consciousness is that, yes, it is, let's say, that matrix, that entire universe in which we exist, supposedly in our manifested world. Yes, let's call it the manifested world with all its millions of light years, shall we? So this perception and sensation on a cosmic scale, this significant portion of the matrix, or this mother's womb, or this egg, we begin to perceive and sensually experience it. These are field structures, different fields with varying frequencies and vibrations. We begin to experience this as we integrate into it, right? And then the next level, relatively speaking, is the divine consciousness. Divine consciousness. This is divine consciousness, but you can't say anything about it anymore. But this perception gets closer, as if we're starting to perceive this whole matrix or this whole egg, or, well, our entire creation that I drew. We start to entirely perceive it through all spectrums of perception, not just our five senses. Here we're talking about completely different transcendent senses of a completely different nature on a different scale. Because at this stage, we're already dealing with completely different dimensions, and the sheer number of frequencies and the quantity of dimensions here is practically endless, you see. And if we delve even further, we can pinpoint what is referred to as unified consciousness. Unified consciousness truly is enlightenment. That's essentially what we generally understand it to be, right? Unified consciousness or enlightenment, and, well, let's just say it's the culmination of something, the end, you could say. This is indeed the birth from the matrix. So here it is, let's say, our egg, the one we are currently within. Yes, this truly is our perception of reality. And here, just so you understand, we are constantly if time is linear for our perception, then we find ourselves either in the past, not the future. So we are constantly either there or there. But this is an immersion into the present moment through our body, through what is happening in our lives, through a special methodology that allows us to access it. Meaning, to recollect and fully grasp the essence of our true selves. And we are this infinite field, this ocean of consciousness that we immerse ourselves into right here. And in order to dive deeper, first we only touch it, right? So the unified level of consciousness is a touching of this absolute even more, right? Cosmic, divine, we experience this through experience. So a person who is awakening begins to acquire the experience of pure consciousness. Then their psychophysics adapt to this state. Going a little deeper, they begin to have experiences of cosmic consciousness. The psychophysics completely restructures, adapting to such types of energies. And thus, you begin to immerse yourself ever more deeply into your essential state, allowing the very nature of the unmanifested to manifest itself within this world. But actually, that's why we came here. And as I said at the beginning, it's about building this Shambhala, El Dorado, Velavodya. It doesn't matter what you call it. Well, for some, it's a mythical land. Yes, but you can read a lot more about it somewhere because it's simply a different level of reality, isn't it? This means it acts as a bridge between the unmanifested absolute, right, with the original source. Because Shambhala is also referred to as an oasis of light, you see, in this very world. And so it's between this unmanifested and manifested world in every creation. This means that everyone starts to bring more of this energy here, and to make it absolutely clear, in fact, this has been practiced since ancient times across all cultures and religions. It's simply that some of the information about it has been lost. However, it was always accomplished through the creation of a particular environment, wasn't it? If we take Hinduism, for example, it was done through ashrams, some temples, monasteries. Buddhism followed the same path. In the same way, Orthodoxy spread through various cathedrals. In exactly the same way, Sufis and dervishes created their some sort of, well, temples served as centers where people could unite and gather. These places allowed groups of individuals, so to speak, to become interconnected with one another, creating a cohesive community. To bring this energy from the unmanifested into the world of forms. That's why in any Orthodox monasteries and churches we can see these saints who dedicated themselves to this very pursuit. Essentially, well, they were people just like us. They simply reached these specific levels of consciousness. So why is this unity so important? To return to the same topic. Because to become enlightened on your own, to enter the infinite ocean of consciousness, the requirements have actually grown right now at this moment, because it's not about doing it alone, but by tuning into each other. Because to bring about a collective creation, right, through the aspirations of those on the team, specifically the aspiration towards this realization, a completely new space begins to take shape, which means a new energetic field emerges. That is, to forge connections, a particular type of relationship among individuals, which then shapes a distinct, new, and exceptionally high-frequency energy field. And this field is actually an artificially created field. We refer to it as paradanta. In our team, through collective service and with the teacher's guidance, we delve into the depths, right? We go deeper and deeper within this field. Well, let's say by pulling back the bowstring and diving in, there, faster and faster, meaning this field is created and you feel it. This is precisely what you and I are coming into contact with here and now, and this is this field. Tell us about the whale retreat. Is it open to everyone or by selection? Where can I get info? Yes, if we talk about the teacher system, everything in nature is manifested in such a way that everyone is a teacher to one another. Everyone teaches each other something, especially the elders teaching the younger ones, right? Our parents. So we are always passing on knowledge about something. That is, this system of succession is simply manifested in nature, and it is very well manifested in sperm whales and dolphins too. We specifically interact with whales and sperm whales creating retreats. We're currently making plans for these in New Zealand and also on the island of Mauritius. And when interacting with whales, and whales are on another level of consciousness, let's say, they are a bit deeper. Yes, it's a different step of evolution. And they are serving on a constant basis. And this system of succession is also inherently built within them because they have a teacher system. They meditate, and consequently, they generate a very potent energy field around themselves. They truly harmonize and structure space. As you understand, 70% of our planet is composed of water, and it is precisely this civilization that essentially lives alongside us, yet resides solely in the ocean, that harmonizes and structures space through meditation. And when you enter their field, your energy changes very quickly. That is, you experience a rapid awakening. You quickly enter other states of consciousness because they pull you up to their level. They are, well, interested in this. They are interested in having more conscious people because the oceans are dying, and we ourselves understand what the state of affairs is now and what disasters our world is generally suffering, right? And this happens, well, based on the principle like everyone saw in the movie Avatar, when they connected with their braids. Well, tuning in with the whale happens in much the same way, and it transmits this energy. But overall, so you understand, the actual methodology and formats of our retreats are entirely holistic. That is, it provides the opportunity. Practically 80-90% of people have an awakening experience at the retreats. But awakening, as you understand, is only the beginning of the path. And in addition, during the interaction with the whales, simply because they emanate such a vast amount of energy, it becomes possible to attain an experience of cosmic consciousness. This is precisely what whales transmit as they perceive the planet and even beyond the planet's boundaries. Their sensory perception is significantly more profound and powerful. What about the climate now? Can an enlightened, awakened person help harmonize nature and awaken humanity with love? Great question. And at one time, last century, end of the last century, there was the Maharishi Institute. I don't know what's become of it now. Studies were conducted there based on Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's transcendental meditation. And they even had meditators at such a profound level of consciousness who engaged in transcendental meditation. Yes, they conducted it there, they taught there. For instance, they would visit locations where military conflicts were underway. They documented this during what was then the Lebanese-Israel war, and they would meditate and teach there. They trained politicians, the government, police, and even the military to meditate. And so, in this manner, certain improvements took place within the surrounding space, and various healings also occurred. And statistical data indeed indicated an increase in birth rates, a decrease in mortality, and even a rise in stock market indices. Well, of course, the war would stop for some time, but when the meditating group left from there, everything returned to its former state. But actually, the question is a good one because there really is an influence of people, especially when they are in tune with each other, right? Speaking of the field that we form and create, we have more than 120 people who are constantly in this practice, deepening this field. Well, because everyone is interested in the same goal, we dive into the depth ever closer to this source, to this oasis, right? So because of that, of course, there's an influence. And the more of these, let's say, centers there are in the world, because it's, well, kind of like a substation, right? Meaning it transmits an energy that influences the processes that are happening. The more there are, the greater the influence will be. But that's like a side effect. The world is truly undergoing a transformation. This is due to, as we now realize, certain disagreements we have with nature. We exploit it with a predatory and consumeristic approach. Because of this, it manifests in the form of cataclysms, wars, epidemics, floods. Well, it's a process, so we need to build this harmony somehow. Well, of course, more people, more such centers are needed, and then the process will move forward, and with the climate too. Okay, what's the question? Tell us about Paradanta. Well, Paradanta in general is a field that is created artificially with the help of people. I've talked about this before. Yes, people who are constantly in practice, meditating and moving along the path home based on the principles of serving the world and passing on knowledge. Basically, it has always been this way. There, carry the good news, the news of the kingdom of God, that it exists within us, right? Or any other current, any movement. From the east to the west, yoga or any other spiritual teachings were developed and transmitted. So this way, through the transmission of knowledge about the source, there is growth and transformation for everyone who is involved in it. Therefore, Paradanta essentially engages in this, consistently reinforcing and shaping this field through relationships, through joy, and through the specific methodology that the teacher shares. Okay, Sasha, about the heavy food. I get it. Please tell me, why can't we drink coffee? For me, this is a very difficult challenge. If I can grasp the importance of it, it will certainly make things easier for me. Well, first, regarding heavy food. You see, in today's world, nutrition is tailored to specific tasks, since we do live in this world and various processes are unfolding. Various ones, right? And sometimes, depending on one's conductivity capacity and certain energetic processes, it becomes necessary to reduce food intake. Perhaps a lighter, more easing diet or a detox would be beneficial. There are times when a stronger connection to the earth is necessary, which means you might need to consume more solid or denser food. Everything, it's all about concepts, because any food you see is also light, and light itself transforms into light, dissolving into it. That's why these are all concepts. And the same principle applies to coffee. Well, many. There are opponents of coffee, there are those who recommend it, and those who don't. You just have to decide for yourself whether you need it or not. Listen to your body. If it needs it right now, well, just do it in moderation, that's all. But I'm not really an expert on this, to be honest. I can just say one thing. Your body, your inner world, your inner voice, your heart determines how you should live in this space, how to interact with it. The main point should be, I'm on the path home, and in this life, I want to truly emerge into this truth, into the absolute. Then if you need coffee, you'll drink 2 cups. If not, none at all. So. That wasn't for me, was it? Valeria wrote, they ask us not to drink coffee before and during the retreat. This process is very painful for me. Is it possible to make it easier somehow? Try drinking decaffeinated coffee. If you love this drink, how can you make it easier? You simply need to make a deal with yourself. It's a journey, an internal negotiation. Your body is in control. Ask your body, what do I truly need? Do I seek awakening or just to drink coffee? Once you decide that you need awakening, giving up coffee becomes easy. So what's an avatar to you? You know, if you delve into the Hindu system, it is commonly accepted that avatars came to be here to Earth to introduce specific knowledge, wouldn't you agree? After achieving a state of complete realization, such as Mahavatar Babaji or the Sai Baba avatar, as if at the very highest level of attainment. But essentially, an avatar refers to anyone who arrived already perfected for this specific mission and achieved full realization. But on the other hand, you can call our body, our psychophysics, our structure, our entire energy system an avatar. In other words, the character through whom the spirit is manifested here. Well, for instance, yes. All right, Alexander, could you please tell us about divine predestination? Does free will exist? Well, let's bring that image back to our minds. If we're talking about that from the very moment we came into being within this creation, here is our creation. It is simply a thought that we have put our belief into. It's just a thought, everything. And coffee too, absolutely everything. All of this is simply in our creation. This is our illusion, which is perceived through this prism of perception. Direct pure consciousness, yes, consciousness, the absolute the universe perceives through our avatar, let's call it that, this very space, and what's happening. Regarding what is predetermined, well, there exists a certain kind of cause and effect relationship there. The space of variations itself is multivariant and infinitely numerous. So, do you understand what infinity is? In all directions, everything is infinite. Anything can happen. But, well, you can also talk about some numerological predictions, astrological ones, or anything else. And all of this works as long as we're in personality, as long as we are in this matrix, as long as we are stuck in our personality. However, as we begin to awaken, these processes will start have less influence on us because we enter the creator state and essentially become the cause of everything. We manifest our true nature and realize that we are beyond all of this. It starts to affect us less and less. In other words, we go off the matrix rails. So we gain true free will, we begin to manifest the source, and we become the creators and directors of this entire game. Become those who exist beyond the confines of this game that is influencing us, beyond these conceptual frameworks, and beyond the matrix itself. This is the exit from it, the birth, when we start exploring it more, right? So it turns out that if we will do the practice with a large number of people, like as a unified consciousness, we will able to put an end to wars. Well, actually, yes. We influence all of this. The deeper our connection, the more profound our relationships, the higher the quality of our bonds, the stronger our connection with the space around us and with each other. This is all one unified process. The more energy we are able to channel through ourselves. Tsiolkovsky expressed it quite well in his time, and Vernadsky confirmed it, that if just two of us truly engage with one another for a single profound underlying purpose. He even said that people who know how to unite will enter the golden age, and that if there are two of us, we increase this energy sevenfold. If three, then like 49 times. If four, then 343 times. Can you imagine the immense amount of energy that can be channeled into this world of forms if we are plugged into the source like plug into the socket, right? And begin to transmit? But if we speak of an Eden, a paradise on earth, or this Shambhala arising and covering the entire earth, suggesting that a quantum leap will occur and we all will become truly happy, that simply won't happen. We are currently operating within a mechanism of correction, and as such, each individual has the responsibility to transform their own creation. Therefore, when we intersect within our respective creations, we find that we share nothing in common. This is because our conceptual frameworks and individual understandings, even when observing a singular event, are entirely distinct and vary greatly. Because we perceive everything through our own individual prism of perception. So until we become awakened, we see that the world simply is full of illusions. We don't see the truth in all of this, right? But there is, of course, an influence on correction. But regarding the fact that one can build Eden or paradise on earth, that is indeed true. Yes, but it's just a different frequency, which is not visible to those who are not building it. That is, it's a different frequency of vibrations. This is a world that is right here, is being built in the present moment. And there are predecessors before us who have already built it. And we can discover much of this within the epics described by the Roriks, for instance. Or there's also the book Two Lives, which explains this concept quite well. That people have already walked this path, they have already created such relationships, were born and came out from the matrix. And in this very space, they constructed a world, effectively building a bridge from the unmanifested realm directly into the world of forms. Could the spiritual awakening state be fixed? Or is it an experience when you are everything? Or is it enlightenment? So what is spiritual awakening and how do you define it? Well, I touched on it a little, yes, partially mentioned that if we talk about spiritual awakening, well, we, for example, have a certain gradation when a person is no longer involved. Let's say, let's start with something very basic. That's it. The mind becomes a tool. That's it. It no longer controls. This means that those emotions, those old patterns, those deeply ingrained programs that were present, they simply, leave. They fall off completely. Freedom and relaxation emerge, along with sensory perception. One sees the world as an extension of self. That's it. There's nobody there who disagrees with the current situation or who feels separate. So this feeling of separateness disappears, right? And the person settles into this new reality and lives like that. This means they don't live through a very crude prism of perception, but rather through a more refined sensory perception of space in a state of pure consciousness. So if we are to discuss about you being everything, from this very moment, from the moment of spiritual awakening, sensory experience emerges, and with it the path becomes clear, a path as a continuation, realizing that I am not separate. That's it. This space and I are one. Then a more profound depth emerges. Indeed, the source is felt more, and this very source increasingly brings itself here, yes, enriching and completely filling this entire space. This means a certain process of living is initiated, not within the personality, right? And there is a growing realization that the mind is only a primitive part of consciousness, correct? In the same way as the physical body is also just one part of my being. But the holistic perception is entirely different, far more expansive, yes, more sensory. That's it. However, if we talk about enlightenment, it cannot be described conceptually at all, because enlightenment is beyond all concepts, all frameworks, all beliefs, all stereotypes, beyond everything. How can one speak of it? All this unity with the source of life possesses an entirely different depth, a different kind of energy. It's the unobstructed flow of life energy without obstacles. It is a total and unconditional service, a kind of shining light. All of this is light everything. Simply speaking, it's the soul, whole, absolutely impersonal, without any conceptual husk. Well, something like that. How do we determine it? It's simply something that's felt, a deep sense of knowing. There's a concept that if karmically destined to awaken in this life, then you will awaken. What can you say about that? I've already somewhat addressed that, explaining that there's a multivariant space of possibilities where diverse events can unfold. An individual might awaken, or they might not. We all come here for precisely this purpose. There certainly exists a specific karmic corridor. However, everything hinges upon the current moment and the specific framework, or more precisely, the particular track an individual selects for their personal evolution within that present moment. In other words, a multitude of different development options for various events can occur, therefore. Is sensory perception is the spiritual awakening? Not exactly. Well, regarding spiritual awakening, we are attempting to conceptually discuss things that are sensory, do you understand? Sensory, and it is beyond words and intellectual concepts. Isn't that right? Well, for instance, when we speak about a beautiful symphony, recall Sonata number 6, I don't know, right? And you won't be able to say anything about it, absolutely nothing, because it is an experience. Just like the experience of any fruit that you know is very rich in flavor with its own range, and I've never tasted it before, you won't be able to describe it to me. You might say, well, this is sour, or this is sweet. Yes, it's simply a different state of being. It's, a different way of perceiving things. That's it. The heart is a unique consciousness system. To perceive through the heart, yes, through the heart, in principle, because the source is closer to the heart. However, if we speak about our entire integral energy system, then full realization, yes, or enlightenment, when we have completely fulfilled our entire energy potential, that is, all our bodies, so to speak, and the centers responsible for them, yes, our toroidal system, yes, the torsion fields, let's say, that exist, then they have achieved full realization. This means they transmit energy from the Absolute or from the Tao or from this source completely unimpeded, all like pure light. I'm able to completely handle all the energy that exists within the Absolute. And then, after a unified level of consciousness, to dive deeper and deeper into this energy. But this is not for me. So what's the point here? There's this concept that I want to achieve enlightenment as soon as possible. I need it so badly. Or to awaken to cosmic consciousness. To even arrive here, you must completely transform yourself, turning around 180 degrees and master unconditional service. That is to move from a consumer mindset to one of service. So, to dive deep in this, you must understand the extent of energy I will contribute to this world of forms. We require the source so that we may share it. All that exists here is created by the principle of inhale and exhale. So why do we talk about the methodology as holistic? Because the principle of inhale and exhale is not solely meditation, rather it is a meditative practice designed to help you immerse yourself deeply in this profound source to interact with your inner space. Correspondingly, the exhale represents the realization of all the energy you've absorbed during meditation, allowing you to aid others through your internal work, to serve by transmitting this energy, to get tired again, and to dive even deeper into meditation.